We are live. We're going to begin now. Namanda, 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 namanda. Good morning. Ohayo gozaimasu. Nice to have the service order with you today. the chanting, sutra chanting. We're going to have the Sambujo on page 2425, and then the main portion of the chant is Juseige. So we haven't done that for a little while. It's nice to do one of our regular chants. Gatha, we're going to sing Arigato on page 249. Let me give you these again later on. I'll just go through the whole thing with you. And then we will read the Vandana Tisarana. Then I'll come back for the Dharma message. And we'll have a second Gatha, Namo Amidabutsu. And then today is our Ask Reverend Dennis, the fourth Sunday of the month. So if you have questions, or you can think about them now, I have a question that has been submitted. And if we have some off the floor, we can address those at the end of our service, okay? So today I have CD player ready and prepared. So I've been practicing pushing the right button and all this. So even though Lenny is here, we're going to try to do these gathas with recordings, okay? So we will begin with the sutra chanting. Sambujo, page 2425, Juseige, page 93. Namanda, 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 namanda. 無浄土志願不満足成無上昇願我無量行不異大摂取不再小貧苦成無上昇願我至上分の妙正長実法苦行微小門成無上昇願利欲人少年上映宗門行四愚無浄土一生天人死人力現代公不生無才道少女三苦病交際修薬難会議知恵言滅死根門永息小悪道通断善修門高僧上満足異様老実法日願修十義天候不言一種解放像法世功徳法上大集中説法四苦不要一切物無足修徳本願念出上満徳意三概要女分無下知自断未不詳願学営利投資最小損志願略効果大聖の感動国書天に当人妙見 Now I get to press the button. Arigato, page 249, and then Vandana Tisarana on page 167. Vandana Tisarana, page 167. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. No. Does it sound okay? Sound better? Okay. Except I can't see my notes. Yeah, so last week we were able to chant the Shoshinge because it was whole service and a little bit longer chant, but when we do have a service specific to our founder Shinran Shonin, we try to chant the Shoshinge, and inevitably somebody comes up and says, oh, I really like that. And even though it's longer, it takes a little bit more time, but people do appreciate having the longer chant and just a little bit different than our usual chant. So people do appreciate that. So today we have one that we just chanted. Ones we do quite often, the Sambujo and the Juseige. So I wanted to talk a little bit about each of those. Chanting in general, you know, we are reading aloud the sutras, the teachings of the Buddha, and so not just to recite it, but it should be touching our hearts, very deep reverence and respect for the teachings that we have been able to receive. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. And two types of chanting in our school of Buddhism, and one is called Dokkyo, and the other is called Shomyo. So the Sanbujo is an example of Shomyo. It's a little more melodic, okay, and so it's nice to do them together. Sanbujo is kind of an introductory chant and kind of enjoyable to hear the different tones and pitches. And Dokkyo is how the Juseige is read, how the Alameda Kyo is read. And so we're reciting the basic sutras. So if you read the Dai Muryoju Kyo, Kan Muryoju Kyo, Alameda Kyo, you read those in very earthy voice, calm, settled voice. And this is the way that we chant the Juseige. So we're accustomed to that, right? So the Juseige is part of the Daikyo, the Dai Muryoju Kyo. So this is why we read it as one of those, same very earthy tone. So normally we don't chant the Larger Sutra. The smaller sutra is the Alameda Kyo, and we chant half of that, right? Because it's kind of long for us. When I go and visit the International Center in Kyoto, they have their own morning service, and when you are there, or if you stay there, you join them for the morning service, and they're chanting the Daikyo. And so they'll read, a certain section, certain number of pages, and then they'll put their marker in and close it. The next day they come to the next section and they read on from there. And it takes days and days to read it. So it's like 20 times longer than the Alameda Kyo, maybe even more than that. So even to do that, they don't have the Romanized sections, so they only have the kanji, and it's hard to keep up with them. I get lost. I can't stay with them. And when the kanji, the characters are not something you recognize, your mind doesn't register, and so your mouth does something else. While your eyes are seeing certain characters. I know that one, and you're comfortable, but it only takes a short amount of time, and they're on to the next page and the next page, and they go on and on. So it's kind of discombobulating when you join them, and you feel like such a novice when you get to that point, and they are so accustomed to that, and we from America are not. So these are the two examples again, Shomyo, the Sanbujo, and the Dokkyo, our regular chanting voice for the Juseige and other chants. Okay. So if you look at your book on page 91, this is the beginning of before we chant the Juseige, and it's kind of an explanation. So let me go over that with you. So just like I said, the Juseige comes from the Larger Sutra of Immeasurable Life. And in that sutra, Dharmakara, Bodhisattva Dharmakara, Hozo Bussetsu, he makes these 48 vows, and upon completion of those 48 vows, he becomes a Amida Buddha. Okay? And before he completed the vows, he's telling this Buddha, Lokeshwara Raja, of his intention that he's going to create these 48 vows and complete them all. And so the main ones are these three that are listed here. And this is why the Juseige is sometimes called the three sacred vows. And here, these are like the main vows, and he's to, number one, to establish the most incomparable vows in the world. Okay, so he wants to create this perfect Pure Land. And so these vows are what are being called the most incomparable vows in the world. Number 2, become a great provider, save the poor and the suffering. Okay, so to allow beings, people, to become awakened to the truths of reality. Okay, the poor and the suffering, they are not the people lined up at the soup kitchen or sleeping under the underpass. The poor and the suffering are us, right? You and me, who are always revert back to our ego-centered selves. Okay, this is and we're stuck in this realm of ego-centeredness. So these are the poor and the suffering. So it refers to us, not people who are down and out materialistically. Okay, spiritually down and out, and that's us. And the third one, attain Buddhahood and have his name heard throughout the 10 quarters of the universe. Okay, so his final goal is to become Amida Buddha, and when people recite his name, they're able to awaken to these the truths of reality. Okay, so this is the basics of the Juseige. So in the whole Larger Sutra, it's explaining this whole story about Dharmakata Bodhisattva and his creating these vows and completing these vows. And when we come to the chant, the Juseige, it's kind of like a summary of the whole sutra. So in these short verses that we just chanted today, it's kind of like the whole story of Hozo Bosatsu wanting to create these vows, to create the Pure Land, and giving us this opportunity to awaken and becoming Amida Buddha. So it's kind of like Cliff Note summary of what the whole sutra has to say. Right? And that's the Juseige that we're so accustomed to. Okay. So this again is a sample of Dokyo chanting. So when they describe this, they say, as we read this, is to hear the Dharma taught in this sutra, embrace it with a joyous mind. Yes, this is like how we are supposed to be reading the sutras, how we are supposed to be chanting. So this statement kind of reveals the importance of chanting in our tradition. So to awaken to the powers of Amida Buddha, the name of Amida provided to us, and we awaken to this reality. So it sounds like it's very flowery language, but kind of not necessarily so. Okay? It's like all these things. Always we talk about infinite causes and conditions, and these are all around us, right? So air, water, food, the people that are in our lives, all these things are recognizable aspects of these countless causes and conditions. So this is, all of these things together are called Amida, right? So when we recognize all of these, that we're a part of all these infinite causes and conditions, that we are able to recognize that this is the reality that we live within, that sustains us. We don't do anything to deserve the air we breathe, but somehow, almost magically, we take a breath, right? Almost magically, turkey appears and we gnaw on a drumstick. All of these things that just kind of happen, and each of these are provided to us. So when we look at them one by one, so yeah, I cooked the turkey this year. I went to Safeway and bought enough groceries, so I got my 20-pound turkey for only $10. And then I cooked it just like Grandma used to, you know. And we take credit for our efforts, but, you know, beyond what I did, it's recognizing, realizing that all of these things allow me to live my life in every single moment of every day. So when we say Namo Amida Butsu, we are acknowledging our place in this reality. So it's not like I have faith that someday I'm going to be born in the Pure Land. No, it's recognizing how we live right now and awaken to this. And so this is what the chanting is saying, right? We recognize our connection, our interconnection with this greater reality. So Namo Amida Butsu, this voice is calling us to awaken. Not I am saying it. Reality is awakening us. And in the same sense, the chanting is kind of like the Nembutsu awakening us. Right? So this is the kind of mind that we should have, or should remind ourselves of when we do the chanting. Right? So one thing I wanted to point out is many of us have created our own or have purchased and set up a obotsudan at home, a home altar, and you know, you can buy a miniature version of the altar and put it in your home. You would have a place for the bell and the flowers, the miniature vase, candle, or you could just make all these things yourself. Right? When I was in college, I had an obotsudan, nothing like this. Some things I might find at the beach were on there. My candle was on there. I, have found an extra incense burner, so eventually I put that on there. But this is my special place, my settled place, where I would come and feel comfortable to put my hands together. Namo Amida Butsu, right? And so maybe, hopefully, each of us, how many of you have an obotsudan at home? Yeah, pretty much. So some might light incense at your home obotsudan and just say Namo Amida Butsu, or just bow, right? Maybe something good happened or something happened and you just feel put your cap down, and you are appreciative. At the same time, you miss your kitty and you feel empty space in your heart. So you go to your home altar. Namanda, 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 right? And so we have these things. Others might offer fresh rice, just like we put up here. I don't always do that every day. My mother does. Every single dinner time, she puts a rice offering on the obotsudan. Sometimes when you get fresh fruits, neighbor gives you fresh fruits. Oh, I'm so grateful. So you put that on your home altar, just like we put up here. Right? And so some of us might do that, not every time, but sometimes. Right? Others might be offering a chant. Maybe some have a little more time, so you light your incense, perhaps, ring the bell, and you do the Juseige, the whole thing. So in a sense, that's your temple. So you are the sensei, right? And you act in that manner. You light the candle, just so. You light the incense and put it in the incense burner, just so. And you do the chanting. Hit the kin if you have it, and you chant. And you do things just like you remember, just like you've been taught, or mimicking what your sensei did, and you've seen this for years and years. Okay, so these are things of how we use our home altar to do these same gestures, chanting the Juseige, for example, because that would be the most prominent one. Mrs. Chirao, we always talk about. She used to do that every single evening, right? And so this was her practice, regular practice, that the evening would not be complete unless you did this portion of it, right? Yeah. So these are things, some people, when they leave on a trip, okay, just like how many of you grew up and you told when you went out to school or something, itte mairimasu, and anybody say that to their parents, right? There's a few people, right? You're taught to say this, say itte mairimasu, I'm going to leave now, and your mother usually is the one who would respond, right? And so you let them know, I'm going to school now, and you leave. And you come back, tadaima, right? Tadaima, and I'm home now. And she would say, okaeri, okaeri nasai, something like this, right? And so there's give and take conversation with your parents, and this is done often in front of the altar as well, your home obutsudan. I think of my father when we would go on vacation time or something. We're going to leave this house for a couple of days, so he'll go to the obutsudan, hit the king, ding ding, namanda, itte mairimasu, and then we all pile into the car, go to Los Angeles or something, right? And we come back and same thing, hit the king. First thing we come home, tadaima, right? Namanda, namanda, tadaima. And so we use the altar, and in the same sense that we're saying the Nembutsu, we use the altar as our connection, as our communication with this greater reality. So, in this sense, when we are home, just us at the altar, we take the role of being the sensei at our home altar, and we do each of these things. Right? So, have we ever done that? Have you ever, which of these have we done? Offering fruits, offering rice, itte mairimasu, tadaima. Yeah, we do these things. And so, some of it is like mimicking what we do. And not just to do and to remember mom and dad, but there's something else. There's a connection that we feel. There's a connection when we chant. We sense our connectedness with this greater reality. And this is an awakened state of being. Okay? And we want to be able to recognize this and address it and allow this conversation to occur. It's a very, very meaningful part of our lives. So the chanting, when we chant, all these different things, maybe we can recognize a little bit more deeply and appreciate a little bit more concretely what is going on here when we do these things. So we're kind of recognizing our lives are a result of a great number of these causes and interrelationship with all these conditions. Okay? So everything exists just for me. Despite my limitations, they come to me. Okay? And so as we live and acknowledge this and become aware of this, so it becomes a very dynamic perception of reality and of our relationship with this reality. And this bolsters our own life, gives our life this kind of meaning. Right? So again, we hear this calling voice of Amida. When we say Namo Amida Butsu, beyond our own voice, it's Amida's voice coming to us, chanting Amida's voice coming to us, calling us. Okay? So when we say it like that, it kind of sounds like this other being calling us but reality itself is calling us. That's how I explain it to myself, in a sense, right? This reality is calling me. And it's always calling me. We are reminded when we bow, when we recite Namo Amida Butsu, when we chant the Juseige, and each of these things bring us back to this greater sense of me and not to my own self-centered, self-concerned life. So let me read this wasan and you can listen to this. Please join me in Gassho. How brazen and impotent a person I am, and without a heart of truth or sincerity. But because the name is transferred by Amida, its virtues pervades the 10 directions. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda, Namanda. So again, in this wasan, despite my own limited perspective, my own limited ability, this name transferred to me by Amida, by reality itself, coming from all the directions of the infinite universe, coming to me. How fortunate I am, how fortunate you are. Right? So, thank you very much for letting me share this message regarding sutra chanting, the Juseige, the Nembutsu. Let's see. Let me get my next. We get to have Gatha number 2, and we're going to sing Namo Amida Butsu on page 174. Please stand up. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda. Please be seated. Okay, so today we have Ask Reverend Dennis, 4th Sunday of the month, and yeah, at first we weren't sure we were going to have this service because it's part of my vacation days. But we decided to have the service in person rather than a recording, so I realized we have an Ask Reverend Dennis on the 4th Sunday, so I did receive one question, and if you have others, you can think about it right now and ask me in a second, but I'll address this first one, and it was about the kancho that we hit to start the service, and wondering about the meaning, significance of the kancho. So if you have been here a few times, you know we hit the kancho to announce the beginning of the service, and it calls everyone to settle down, to take their seats, to become a little more mindful, not to, initially we're chatting with each other and saying good morning and maybe taking out our okesai and our onenju and things like this. But it's just kind of a calling signal to announce that the start of service is coming. There have been times when we're staying at the dorm in Japan and we're on our way to morning service and the kancho starts, right? So then you better hurry, you gotta hurry. So the kancho is ringing, and anytime I hear the kancho, I see this image of my own father standing. He was at the Plaza Buddhist Church when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. And so those kind of memories stay with me. I could see him. The kancho was on the outside side of the temple, and I could see him. The kancho is hanging, and he's hitting this kancho. I could see him standing there anytime I hear a kancho. So it's kind of a nice connection. In early days here, before my time here, our kancho was way up at the top, at the peak of our building. So I can't imagine having it up there. I can't imagine bringing it up there to hang it on. But Sensei used to have to go up there and hit it and run back down here for service every week. No wonder he quit. I think wisdom prevailed and say, let's hang it a little bit lower. A lot of temples have had it hanging outside, and people come and take the kancho because it's metal, right? And so they reinforce it or move it inside like we have done here, and things like that happen. But basically it's a signal, just like hitting the daikin before. Pattern to it. We hit it 7 times, and then what they call a yama, where it's kind of like low, soft, and quick. Yama means mountain. So you're making this form, shape of a mountain. And then you hit it 5 times. Okay? And then you do the same yama again. And then 3 times. So that's the signal. 7, 5, 3. Okay? And there's no particular reason. Japanese culture, they have a closeness and affinity to odd numbers. Okay? So 7, 5, 3, 9, 7, 5, 3 are very common when you hear, even when they serve meals, they might have 7 dishes, for example, for a special meal. So it's very common. Kodani Sensei at Senshin, he would say, Japanese just appreciate this odd numbered, like a potter from China. He would make a vase and make it completely symmetrical, right? China would have more of an affinity with even numbers instead of odd numbers. So their vase would be perfectly symmetrical. And he's completed this beautiful new vase, right? In Japan, they would make it perfectly symmetrical, and they go bong, and it would be asymmetrical, right? There's some kind of flaw that was added to it to make it complete. And they think it's more closer to a natural state of being, right? So Japanese potter would have this kind of thing done to it, not necessarily hit it, but create something where there's a beautiful unevenness to it, right? So it makes it odd, right? So again, some kind of thing with even, odd. So Japan appreciates that. So other than that, no particular reason. We just had a session with minister assistants and telling them about the Yama, the mountain portion. It would be very soft and quick, and so slows down. So I tell them, envision yourself running up this mountain. Not just thinking about the shape, but you're running on this mountain. You're getting tired. You're slowing down. You're slowing down. You finally get to the peak. Let everyone know you made it to the peak. So stop there, sometimes they hit it and it gets a little bit muddled at the peak because they didn't stop while they're at the peak. So stop. Just like you're running up there, you had to catch your breath. Now you're coming back down. Right? So make that pause, and so trying to show them what it sounds like and have this image in their mind so they do it at all times. Yeah, so all these things. Another thing you might recognize is when we have guest ministers, they enter. They'll wait back here or behind the Alameda statue, and so they'll hit the kancho 7 times and do the yama at the start of the 5 they enter. So you might see this when you go to a special service or when we have guest ministers here in attendance. You will see that. We try to do that in Manji. I don't hit the kancho. One of the assistants is outside hitting the kancho, so I wait in the back. They hit the 7 times, the first yama, then I come out and I'm bound service, and when they announce that the kancho will be rung, and so someone is already predetermined to hit the kancho, so someone else will announce kancho, and the person who's supposed to hit the kancho, hi, and then you could hear them hurrying to where the kancho is, and then he'll hit the kancho. So this is part of what we learn to do as students. And another part that we're not supposed to do, you might hear kancho, hi, and as he's running, the Japanese floors outside are really polished wood, right? And it's easy to slip and slide. So inevitably, hi, his feet will slide out from under him and he'll fall down. It's kind of like everyone else is sitting, waiting for service like this, and they know it's going to happen. Somebody's going to fall down. So it's kind of funny, but every now and then those kind of things happen. So not only just to talk about the kancho and the pattern, but these are some of these other stories that I've had to related to the kancho. So thought I would share all of those with you today. Any subsequent questions about the kancho? Yes, Dorothy.
The history of barbell, was it made specifically for us, or do you know what the history is about? I mean, they had to ship it from Japan. I mean, the thing is really big and heavy. But was it made specifically for us, do you think?
This one here that we have?
Yeah.
Yes, specific. I think there are names on there that are sometimes certain individuals or families would contribute to donating it, and their names might be inscribed on the kancho itself, and so you could see those. There might be a number of names because they do get a little bit costly. So maybe certain families, why don't we contribute and have this made? And so that has to be molded onto the kancho itself. So yeah, you don't go to Costco for a kancho. Yes, Doug.
I just want to thank you for explaining, the significance of the kancho. It's very helpful, and there's this sort of just brief story that I wanted to say about that involves our mosque. And I remember it was before you, Sensei, our predecessor, Taniguchi Sensei, we used to ring the kancho. And I noticed, I think one time mosque became a little bit upset that people were still talking and socializing while the kancho was being rung. And I think he may have said something, and I thought, that's right, people should really settle down. It's really a call to sort of, okay, time to turn your mind towards the Dharma and sort of calm down and focus mindfully on the Dharma. And so I think I yelled at the Sangha a little bit one time, I don't know if it was helpful, it was after the service or something, to say, look, when the kancho starts, that's the time for you to stop talking and socializing and focus on things, because people were sort of like, oh, it's not started yet. He's still ringing the bell, so it's not time to the service, and people were just socializing amongst each other a lot. And so it's helpful to know this is the time to sort of calm down.
Yeah, I think so. Calling us to become more.
They won't settle down. When you come in here, they're talking. When in the chapel, we've always thought that when you come in here, you'll be quiet. Yeah. And you settle down. Even in funerals, they're talking real loud. So we're also guilty. I see this. Yeah. I think that has to be emphasized at every temple. When you come into the church, you should settle down.
Yeah, I don't know. We're still videoing. I'm not sure everyone can hear when people mention things. Mas was talking about how he had learned long ago. As soon as you come into the Hondo, you should be thinking to settle down and not so much talking as much. But I think ideally that's true. But at the same time, we're so happy to see each other. I think it's a natural thing to be able to talk to each other and acknowledge each other, and that's important too. So we make room for that to occur. Yes?
I feel the same way because I've gone into churches and everybody, they just walk in like, oh, there's my friends, and they're, and I think it's a sacred space. And you should treat it that way. You come in and you be quiet. If you want to talk over there and then come in. And I found that in the church too. And one time I was at a retreat and I stood up and I said, it's inappropriate. Why don't you talk to your friends outside? It's not a performance space. And the
so John is mentioning how the Hondo is a sacred space and should be treated as such. And so, to be mindful. Again, as soon as you enter, you might want to be a little more settled, a little more mindful, and calm yourself down. So, okay, Doug, you got to stand at the door and yell at them from now on. Okay.
Well, I was saying not being a Buddhist, but even in other spiritual traditions, people pile in and treat it like, oh, it's like a performance is about to start. Until it does, then we can talk. And I just feel that's like not honoring anything.
Yeah. It's not the bus station.
No.
Okay. Dorothy, did you have another question?
I used to live, our family was 1 block away, and when I was a little kid, and when you were talking about the bell going high, running up a hill, that's when I started running from my house. running to the temple.
Okay. Yeah, Dorothy's remembering in her youth. She would start running when the person on the mountain. Da, 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 da. That's Dorothy's footsteps out on the sidewalk. Yeah, good one. Mimi, did you have a?
I'm commenting about people talking. When I heard the first deal here, that people were just talking, I thought, that's so wonderful because they accept impermanence of life, so they're happy. And that's how I interpreted it. Am I wrong?
Well, one
I
time,
thought it was a good thing.
I was the chairman once, and it happened at the funeral. They were all talking, and the family sitting up and very quiet, everybody's talking real loud. So I had to go back and say, this is the memorial service, and keep it down a little bit, It needs to be really loud. It's a big funeral. But you're right, it's a secret. They accept the impermanence of life, but at the same time, we have to honor the people who are learning,
Yeah, people are expressing both perspectives. It's nice to see each other and chat a little bit and acknowledge each other when you come in. And at the same time, if it gets too carried away, and that means it works. Right? So I think that's a good thing. So, if you have any other questions, send it to me, because I don't want to hear of anymore.
You have time for another one question?
Well,
I've been wanting to say this for a long time. I didn't bring it up. Maybe you have it other question that you haven't asked, but this religion in China, Falun Gong or something, millions of people. It's on. If you watch NHK News, they show that Tang Dynasty. It's a Chinese sponsored program, but I believe it's American Chinese who are supporting that station. They talk a lot about this group of people. I think China, by the millions, are being persecuted and thrown in jail. Yeah. Falun Gong, yeah. And then they have other religions, like in New York, and they have a big for 200 people in the band in Toronto, Canada. But my question was, I haven't seen any support in these are religions of other faiths, and they're supporting it. They're sitting in New York with the candle, with the candle lit, sitting on the sidewalk. I haven't seen any Buddhist organization supporting them or showing any interest at all. And I just wondered, it's not a cult, I don't believe it's a cult. They have almost the same mantra that we have, about compassion and tolerance and stuff like that. But, I don't know, is there any rhyme or reason why there aren't Home Office saying something or PCA saying something about supporting them?
I'm not sure what are they doing?
Yeah, supporting them or doing what?
Supporting who?
The Falun Gong. They're
Falun
kind of a different group. They're like, I think they're the sponsors of Shinran, the dance that you see on the
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see the sponsor.
I think they are because I went to see the dance performance and there were a lot of Falun Gong.
Oh, really?
And I said, "Oh, you're part of that?" And they were, like they were afraid to say anything. Because it was that way in New York when I was working on the Gates project.
Yeah.
They were all around the outside trying to get people to understand what they were all about.
Yeah.
So, there's some enemy of Chinese government. I don't know why.
Okay, I'm not sure if people can hear on the video, so I'm going to cut the video. And so this is the end of service. So please join me in Gassho, and we will conclude this service, and I'll relight the incense. Nam Mô A Di Đà Phật. Nam Mô A Di Đà Phật. Nam Mô A Di Đà Phật. Nam Mô A Di Đà Phật.